Warriors fans, I want you to sit with the exact box score from Game 5 of the 2026 Finals for a second, because it genuinely explains everything about why today's news makes so much basketball sense once you break it down. De'Aaron Fox, 12 points, 34% shooting, visibly limited by an ankle he'd been playing through for weeks. San Antonio lost the series to New York in 5 games, an outcome that stung even more given the preseason expectations surrounding this exact roster. And in the immediate aftermath, Brian Wright stood in front of cameras and said the Spurs remained fully committed to Fox as their franchise point guard. That was the public line for the entire month that followed the loss. Behind the scenes, according to multiple national outlets covering the situation closely, the actual conversation inside that building was moving in a completely different direction the whole time. And at 1:19 this afternoon, on a live First Take Now cut-in, Shams Charania told the entire basketball world in real time exactly where that private conversation had actually landed. De'Aaron Fox has been traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Golden State Warriors. Before you scroll off, I'm telling you right now, by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the specific cap mechanism Shams described that let Golden State, an already hard-capped roster, actually absorb a max-level guard days after everyone around the league assumed their offseason roster was completely finished. I'm also going to tell you what Draymond Green posted from his personal account 17 minutes later, a message that's already being replayed on every single NBA show in the country because of how specific and tactically detailed it genuinely is. Stay with me all the way through this one. Do not click off early. Here's how it went down, step by step. Molly Kerr is running First Take Now, discussing training camp storylines around the league, when the control room clearly interrupts with real urgency. She stops mid-sentence, visibly caught off guard. "We're going to Shams right now, this is enormous." And they cut. Shams delivers, and this is the direct word-for-word transcript. "I want to explain how Golden State actually pulled this off given their cap situation, because it's a genuinely clever piece of team building rather than a straightforward cap space signing. My understanding is that once San Antonio's internal evaluation of the finals, specifically the significant gap between Fox and rookie Dylan Harper's on-court impact alongside Wembanyama, became the driving conversation inside that front office, Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s staff moved immediately, constructing a deal built around expiring salary and draft compensation rather than requiring cap space they simply don't have available. San Antonio, still absorbing the reality that their own $229 million extension might have been a mistake made in the immediate afterglow of a finals run rather than a clear-eyed evaluation, was receptive to a package that gave them real, immediate draft capital rather than holding out and risking Fox's trade value eroding further as this story played out publicly all summer. This deal is agreed to in principle. It is finalized pending physicals. Read that back. The expiring salary and draft compensation rather than requiring cap space, they simply don't have available. That is Shams explaining the precise financial mechanism that made an apparently impossible move actually work for a team already operating near the second apron. And 17 minutes later, as I promised, Draymond Green posted from his personal account, and the specificity here is genuinely remarkable given how rarely he weighs in this technically on a transaction. Watch that final series closely. People are sleeping on how much of Fox's struggle was that ankle, not talent. Genuine game-changing speed with the ball. Exactly what pulls extra defenders off Steph in transition. This is a real scheme fit, not just a name. Read that back. This is a real scheme fit, not just a name. That is Draymond, one of the most tactically sophisticated players in the entire league, explicitly, deliberately distinguishing this acquisition from a generic star chase, grounding his genuine excitement in specific offensive mechanics rather than pure hype. Exactly the kind of authentic, basketball-literate reaction that confirms real buy-in from inside the locker room rather than a performative welcome statement. Now, the whiplash, because I know exactly what you're thinking. Golden State is hard capped. They already have Curry, Draymond, Butler locked into significant money. How do you add another max level guard without blowing up the entire roster structure days after everyone assumed the offseason was finished? And here's the honest answer, and it requires understanding what expiring salary and draft compensation actually means in practical, real-world terms, rather than as an abstract financial phrase. Golden State didn't need brand new cap space to make this work. They needed outgoing salary that matched closely enough to stay compliant with apron restrictions, and a front office that had, according to Shams, been quietly modeling exactly this scenario for weeks once the post-finals reporting about San Antonio's internal Fox versus Harper evaluation first started circulating around the league. This wasn't a spontaneous reaction to breaking news that morning. This was a front office that had already done the complete financial homework the moment the crack in San Antonio's public posture became visible to anyone paying close attention. Stay with me, because once you understand exactly why Fox's specific game fits what this roster has been missing at the lead guard spot, this stops looking financially implausible and starts looking like the single most obvious swing available on the entire trade market this summer. 3 reasons Shams was this confident. Reason 3 is where the reveal lands. Reason number 1, Steph Curry's efficiency and longevity at this stage of his career depend entirely on reducing his primary ball handling burden without sacrificing his offensive gravity across a full, demanding season. Deaaron Fox gives Steve Kerr a legitimate secondary initiator, someone who can genuinely run offense, break down defenses independently, and let Curry operate more frequently off ball, using his historic movement shooting to punish defenses rather than carrying the full creation load on every single possession. Reason number 2, and this is the tactical detail specific to why this fits Golden State's identity as well as it does. Fox's transition speed, even accounting for the ankle issue that limited him in the finals specifically, remains among the fastest in the league when fully healthy. Exactly the kind of downhill pressure that forces a defense to make an immediate decision, either help off a shooter or concede an easy bucket at the rim. That specific quality, generating easy offense that doesn't require a called play, is precisely the archetype Kerr's motion system has always thrived with alongside Curry's gravity. And before I get to reason 3, because reason 3 is the specific cap mechanism Shams described, talk to me in the comments. Warriors fans, real question. Does Fox's rough finals performance worry you enough to overshadow what would be a genuinely elite backcourt fit next to Curry? Or do you believe the documented ankle injury explains the disparity? Go. Reason number 3, the mechanism. Ready? Built around expiring salary and draft compensation rather than requiring cap space they simply don't have available. Read that back. This is precise technical capology, Shams explaining that Golden State used matching outgoing salary rather than any cap exception, meaning this trade genuinely respects the hard cap restrictions this roster operates under, rather than requiring some creative workaround that wouldn't actually be legal under the current apron rules. That level of financial precision, matching the real, publicly known restrictions on this specific roster, is exactly the kind of detail that confirms real front office sourcing, rather than a fan's wishful hypothetical scenario. Now the skeptic, Stephen A. Smith, predictably found real concerns. You're adding a guy who just shot 34% in the finals, who got outplayed by a rookie, to an already aging core with Curry at 38 and Draymond at 36. At what point does this roster stop being a championship contender and start being a collection of question marks wearing championship banners? And listen, you Stephen A. This concern about compounding uncertainty across an aging, now even more complex roster is completely legitimate and grounded in real, recent struggles that shouldn't just be waved away. But here's the counter. Fox is 28 years old, meaningfully younger than every other significant piece on this roster, and specifically brought in to reduce the physical burden on Curry rather than add to the roster's overall age concerns. This isn't another aging veteran being stacked onto an already old core. This is the youngest significant addition Golden State has made to its rotation in years, brought in specifically to extend everyone else's effectiveness rather than compete with it. Here's the part of this story with real weight to it. Steph Curry has spent years, publicly and repeatedly, discussing how much he genuinely admires speed-based downhill guards, specifically citing Fox by name in prior media appearances as one of the players whose game he studies from a basketball purist standpoint. This is not a forced fit engineered purely by a front office spreadsheet. This is a superstar who has publicly expressed real basketball appreciation for exactly this specific skill set, now finally getting to play alongside it at the precise moment in his career when he needs it most. But I owe you the honest risk. Fox's recent finals performance, whatever the injury explanation, remains a documented, recent data point that any acquiring team has to weigh seriously, and the complex trade structure required to complete this deal means Golden State's remaining roster flexibility, already tight under the hard cap, becomes even more constrained heading into the rest of the season. Let's actually spend real time on the specific ankle injury detail, because I think it's the single most important piece of context for evaluating whether San Antonio's own internal conclusion actually holds up under scrutiny. Fox suffered a high ankle sprain late in the Western Conference Finals, an injury that visibly limited his first step and his ability to change direction for the remainder of that postseason, including the entire final series against New York. Watch the tape from earlier in the playoffs before that specific injury occurred, and the numbers look completely different. A much more explosive, much more efficient version of the same player operating alongside a healthy Wembanyama. That's not a convenient excuse invented after the fact. Multiple beat reporters covering the Spurs flagged the injury in real time, well before the finals numbers became a national talking point, which tells you this wasn't a storyline manufactured retroactively to explain away a disappointing series. Let's also address the timing question directly, because I think it genuinely matters for how much credibility to assign this entire report. Why would Golden State move on this now, in the middle of August, rather than waiting to see how San Antonio's own internal Fox situation played out over the coming weeks? The honest answer is that a genuine, elite two-way guard becoming available on a value-based trade almost never lasts long once word gets out around the league, and a front office with real conviction about the fit doesn't wait around hoping the price improves. Every extra week this sat unresolved was another week for a third team. Miami, Cleveland, any number of contenders still finalizing their own backcourt questions, to swoop in with a competing offer of their own. Let's talk about the Golden State side of this preparation a little more, because I think it's genuinely worth understanding just how deliberate this front office actually was before making this move public. According to Shams, Dunleavy's staff had been tracking the exact same San Antonio internal evaluation reports that circulated in the days after the finals, essentially pre-building the trade framework that would work within Golden State's specific apron restrictions the moment San Antonio's willingness to move became clear. That's the kind of scenario planning discipline that separates front offices capable of capitalizing on sudden opportunities from those that simply react after news breaks elsewhere first. Let's also talk about what genuine organizational culture actually means for a trade of this magnitude, because I think it's underrated in most breakdowns of a move like this. Golden State, more than almost any other roster in this league, has built an actual infrastructure, medical staff, a genuine load management philosophy, veteran locker room leadership that's specifically designed around extending the effective careers and maximizing the health outcomes of talented players, carrying real physical mileage. Curry himself has dealt with real, documented injury history across his own career and has been carefully managed into remaining an MVP caliber player deep into his 30s, specifically because of how deliberately this organization protects him. If any organization in this league is equipped to actually get a fully healthy, fully confident version of Fox back onto the floor by the time the games actually start mattering, it's one with this specific demonstrated track record of doing exactly that for its own stars. Let's also dig into the defensive fit here, because I don't think the conversation should stop purely at offense. Fox, even in a rough offensive series, remains one of the more disruptive point-of-attack defenders in the league when healthy and fully engaged. A genuine two-way guard who can guard the opposing team's primary ball handler, which frees Draymond Green to operate as a helper and roamer in exactly the way Golden State's defensive scheme has always been designed to function at its absolute best. This is not just an offensive addition dressed up as a two-way one. It restores a specific defensive infrastructure this roster has missed since Klay Thompson's decline years ago. Let's also talk about the Curry admiration angle a little more, because I think this specific detail deserves more than a passing mention given how much it actually explains about the fit. Curry has, across multiple podcast appearances and media interviews over the years, specifically praised guards who played downhill with elite change of pace, citing Fox by name as exactly the kind of player whose speed creates the sort of chaos defenses genuinely fear. That's not a vague, generic compliment any superstar might pay any talented peer. It's a specific, repeated, on-record pattern of praise that predates this trade by years, which is exactly why Curry's own excitement about this pairing reads as authentic rather than manufactured for a press conference.